Richard Coleman.
Our guest this time is known and loved in the TG community. He's truly one of them. He's the creator of opsandtactics, SSB, as he prefers to be called. And he's got one of the most tested and iterated systems available. He's the kind of guy who knows exactly what he wants to accomplish, and he's been working to reach that for many years in a pretty public way, engaging with the TG community. And now he's on Discord. He's joined GDG, and you can go talk to him. Everything I've heard about him from other people before this interview was positive, and I was delighted to have him on. This is actually going to be part one of 2 extra long episodes with SSB, because we had so much to talk about. And I'm not going to drag out the introduction any longer than it has to be, because there's so much to listen to here. You're going to get part 2, and that's going to talk about really bad systems and bad games. He's an experienced, knowledgeable expert on these things, and he teaches me a lot about what really makes a system terrible. We get into that in the next episode, but this one is all about his system, what he's trying to accomplish, and we still don't get to it all, but there's a lot of lessons learned. So strap yourself in for part 1, look forward to part 2, and enjoy some SSB. Okay, so I'm here with Oates, also known as Sweet Soul Bro.
Yeah. Just SSB is fine because everybody knows that.
Well, okay. SSB.
Oates is. The reason it's called Oates is because it's opsandtactics. But yeah, that's why I call myself Oates. OATS.
So yeah, opsandtactics. That's the game that you're known for.
Yeah.
Working on that for, you told me, at least
9 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have heard about it. I've heard people praising it, and I don't know much else about it except for, by reputation, that it's something that the TG community is in love with. Or at least some people are.
I mean, it's a very niche product.
How would you describe it? Like, what is the basic gist of it? And like, I don't even know. Is it an RPG or is it more of a?
Yes, it is an RPG. I'm going to ask you this: do you want the PG version or do you want the R-rated version?
Give me the R-rated version.
Okay, so opsandtactics is a ginormous fuck you middle finger to D20 Modern. That's when it originally started out at. It still kind of is that, but it's not as much of that as it used to be, if that makes sense.
Right.
opsandtactics is a niche system because it's the system of guns. That's basically the best way I can explain it. Last time we counted how many actually uniquely statted guns are in the system, it was somewhere above 1,200. Yeah, we're adding. We're doing the final release. So I'm adding more. Anything that I missed, anything that my playtesters and my co-writer wants. Yeah. So, well, I guess my co-writer doesn't really. He's the monster guy, so he doesn't really do guns like that. But yeah. So it's got a lot of guns. What opsandtactics is, it is a system, but it lacks any type of what's it called, setting or storyline or fluff or anything. The assumption when you use opsandtactics is that you're trying to do like a contemporary modern setting,
right?
With the core rule book. There are also 2 additional rule books called Modern Magic, which adds magic and some fantasy races and some fantasy equipment and stuff like that. And then there is Advanced Arms, which adds plasma guns, laser guns. We call them Volters, but they're basically electric flamethrowers. What else is there? Oh, and like, plasma swords and things like that. So yeah, so you can cramp, the system is written to work with like core rulebook and Modern Magic, or core rulebook and Advanced Arms, or just core rulebook. I've never seen anyone really successfully use Modern Magica or Advanced Arms by itself because they're mostly add-ons. So yeah, it originally started as a giant middle finger to, what is that game? D20 Modern, and it sucked hardcore. But I have been writing it. So now it's not as terrible. So yeah.
Yeah.
So it's yeah.
So you have to bring your own world to it. You have to bring your own setting to it and your storyline. And then this is just tools for simulating the actual, I'm guessing, the guns, the ballistics, health, damage, armor penetration, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but it's not like, here's the other thing. It's not as autistic as things like Twilight 2000, which I got love for, but Jesus Christ, that game is hard to play for new people. So there's a lot that in it that it's not as nearly as like hardcore as people claim for it to be. It's got a lot of D20isms. There is no D20 though. I got rid of that shit real fast. The combat system is not D20 either, which is something that I actually noticed that I had to change. But yeah, so you have to bring your own world to it. You have to and the assumption is that you're playing somewhat, contemporary modern setting or something like that. Anywhere from, Wild West, like the early 1800s to about 2030, 2040-ish. Mm-hmm. So yeah. So that's the assumption.
So where is it currently? Like you're still working on it, I assume.
Yeah, we're currently doing the final proofreading. As in, we're going through the book, we're changing all, spelling mistakes, error mistakes, capitalization. There's a lot of capitalization mistakes. Apparently, I was very heavy on the shift. Stuff like that, spacing. Does this look right? Does this read like a book that you can actually read? Because this is the update that comes out. I'm shooting for like the 15th of this month, which it is currently, May 2nd. I'm shooting for the 15th or the 16th, like in the middle of the month sometime. It's probably going to be the weekend.
By the time this podcast is out, that will have passed. So
and I probably would have spammed TG at this point. So it'll probably be on TG as well. But yeah, it'll be out on the website, on the blog post, and then I wash my hands of the rules and I start working on something else. I have a few things that I need to work on. Oh, yeah. So I'm also working on, as an assistant to Ops and Tactics, is something called SpiderBot. It's a reference to something in Advanced Arms. But it's basically a random gun generator. Right now it's a random gun generator. Sorry, not random. It's a random gun store generator, and it randomly generates an MRE. So you can have all sorts of weird components in it. It's also free. All this is free. PDFs will always be free. Eventually I'm going to put it up on DriveThruRPG and just like, you want to pay me money, pay me money. If you want to download it. I don't care. Steal it, whatever, pirate it. Just don't claim it's yours and I'll be all right. And might do a limited print run. So at the very least for me, because I want a copy of it.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And it sounds like you actually have like editors and people, helping you with that, which I know from talking to the GDG Discord and the GDG community, it's pretty hard to go from being just a guy designing the rules to actually making something finished that other people can read. That's a huge difference of skills.
Well, yeah, it is. Here's the thing though. For about 7 years, I've been doing this by myself. So the only reason I have an editor, quote unquote, is because the editor is my co-writer, Kraft. He knows who he is. He's a dude in Texas. Really awesome. He is literally the linchpin, of this thing. If it was not for him, we would not be nearly as far as we are right now. There's also a third guy who I can't mention his name because he refuses to take credit for anything, but he knows who he is, and he's very, very thankful for him because he was the reason we actually jumped from Open Office to LaTeX. So it's all written in LaTeX. Let me just run that program and it just turns it into a book. It's awesome. But yeah,
I definitely want to hear about what this is because this is a constant discussion on GDG, which is, what do you use to actually make the thing?
Good. Okay. Anybody using Open Office or anything like that, that shit's trash. Don't use that. there's a program called Lyx, Lyx. It is freeware. It runs on everything, Mac, Linux, PC, whatever you got. Okay. It is a WYSIWYG, or is a what you see is what you get. And it's not really what you see is what you get, but it's a graphical interface thing for the LaTeX programming language, which is a markup language. Oh, what the hell is LaTeX? But it's used for like math and shit. But you can also use it for writing articles and stuff, or books, or things like that. Use that because it makes the book look a shit ton better. It simplifies a lot of like typesetting and stuff like that. It's a bit of a learning curve because you are essentially programming a book, but once you get it down, fucking perfect. It looks great.
I wonder how it compares to something like Scribus, which is also, available on a lot of different things. I've been trying to use that, and there's some.
I haven't actually.
You can't really make tables in it that look good. Like.
Lyx was miles ahead of that because opsandtactics is the book of tables. It's got tons of fucking charts and tables and things like that. It's much better.
Awesome.
Get Lyx, Lyx. Like I said, there is a bit of a learning curve, but it's on Stack. It's on Stack Exchange. You can, query questions and error messages and things like that, and it literally will pump out from Lyx to PDF. So, yeah, use that. That is pretty much my go-to.
So what has the progression been since you've been working on this so long? If it was just you in the beginning and it was just, this FU to the, to D20 Modern and stuff like that.
Yes.
What was like version 1 like? What's the difference now?
Version 1 is probably the Alpha 1.0 I posted in December of 2010. That was basically D20 Modern plus a gun chart, and a bunch of guns. So that was actually what spawned. So originally, here's what happened. Originally, I tried to run a few games D20 Modern. Didn't like it because I like guns. I'm a very well knowledgeable person about guns. I used to be a trip fag on K. If that doesn't help my credibility at all, even not even a little. But I am a purveyor of firearms. Specifically handguns. I love handguns. They're fun to shoot, carry, whatever. D20 Modern did a few things so wrong, I took it as a personal affront and decided to rewrite it. The 3 things that they did wrong that pop up in my head immediately are this: guns and ammunition, armor, and money. Those are pretty much the base for any modern system. That's pretty much if you don't have those 3 right, your system's gonna suck. Right. It doesn't matter what, if it's any type of contemporary, like where there's gunpowder stuff like that. If you don't get those 3 things right, and there's multiple ways of getting it right, but if you don't get those 3 things right, your system is going to suck. So D20 Modern. So I took the SRD. This is when we were under the D20 OGL, which we aren't anymore because we've changed enough stuff. But that was just terrible, just awful. And I posted it on TG, and I got slammed hard for it because it was just like they basically told me what it is. This is basically just D20 Modern with more guns.
Yeah.
And I took it a little personally. I was upset, but then I started listening to people. I started making changes. There's a big one. Make a character sheet before you release a game system. I cannot state this enough because that was literally the first. I think I can probably find the post, but that was like the 3rd post of the thread that I started. Okay, where's the character sheet? And I went, oh shit, I knew I forgot something. Make a character sheet because players tend to look at a character sheet and gauge a game. That's how you can tell. Yeah. It's some White Wolf game, but that you look at a character sheet and you just go, nah, I'm good, son. I'm not playing this.
Yeah. No, it's it's a thing that the players are going to be interacting with the most in a way. So it has to be good. And then if you can throw in any sort of like I've seen totally functional character sheets that, you can't complain about the fact that it's not lacking anything, but it just looks ugly, or it's so basic, or it's so complex looking that people just don't, like you said, you just don't want to bother with it.
I mean, okay, so again, we have no artists on our team. So opsandtactics has no art. I'm not an artist by even close, but I drew a character sheet that's literally functional. People don't know this. People don't mind ugly. People definitely mind obtuse.
Oh.
It's got to be straightforward. Like, you've got to be able to look at a character sheet and go, okay, I know what all my things are. You also need to try and keep a character sheet under 3 pages for the core rulebook. Maybe 4, but anything more than 4, and people are just gonna nope out.
Yeah.
There's something it's just things I've noticed. Because like you can as you add more books, as you add more splats, adding more character sheets isn't a bad idea. But the core, you need to be able to play the game on at the most 2 sheets of paper. Anything more than that, and it's a mess. 2 is preferable because back front, single character sheet, 1 sheet of paper, awesome, that's good to go. Because most people have a duplex printer these days. So, yeah.
Yeah. So as you're developing it, you're getting feedback constantly from TG, I imagine, and at the same time, as they see that you're improving it, and you're not just sort of.
Oh no! They didn't see that at all. That's yeah. Because I have to say this because a lot of people who probably listen to this and remember the system when it was first, I was posting like daily.
Right.
Like there were small changes. There were, I was listening to people's stuff. That is something I also recommend people do. Do not care even a little about what you did right. Always ask people, what did I do wrong? Because you're going to get way more mileage out of something of what you did wrong than you are what you did right.
And you know what you did right because they're not complaining about it.
There you go. But yeah, always listen to the complainer because they're the ones that like see it. The hard part is differentiating trolls from actual help.
Right.
Generally the way I was able to do that is I would actually, no matter how, garbage or trolly or stuff like that, I would ask them like, okay, what do you suggest? Give me some information. And that can turn some trolls into actual helpful people. But generally I notice that a troll will not, respond. They don't go into detail. They don't actually give any constructive criticism. They're just like, it sucks. And you go, okay, what sucks? And they go, everything, delete it, kill yourself. Like that's generally what you got. And yeah, no, they didn't notice. TG didn't notice shit for a long time. So yeah, be ready for that. So yeah.
Okay. So then, but eventually, I mean, by now people are talking about you like you're, one of their favorite guys out of the community to make something. Obviously, there was a turning point.
That turning point was probably around 3rd edition. I tried to keep editions down to actual major changes, and 3rd edition, something very interesting happened. So I was playing a game called Jagged Alliance 2 with the 113 upgrade with all the guns on it, right? And I noticed the combat system, the way they did the combat system. It wasn't, move, attack, because I'm going to tell you again, that system is garbage for anything that was firearms, things like that. It's just not good. It's not built for it. Honestly, I'd say it's not good at all. But everything was a point. Everything, you spent points to move this far. You spent this many points to move that far. Yeah. You spent this points. So I like that system a lot. So I immediately scrapped the entire combat system and rewrote it. And when I did that, that was when people started to like, okay, this has some potential. Because from what I can tell, nobody had ever really done that before. The closest I could think of is Ore System or, AF, All Flesh Must Be Eaten with, you get more turns, but it's at a detriment. Yeah, it's like, the more you do, the worse off you become, which doesn't really fit, what Ops really is about. The other reason I did that is because I noticed something during a playtest right before this. People weren't running out of ammunition, and people still don't run out of ammunition now, but I ran a game 10 turns exactly. Character fired a bullet every single turn, and at the end of the turn, at the end of the combat round, it was 1 minute. He emptied his magazine, clipped empty, and the combat was over. And I was like, huh. That's interesting. Why even carry extra magazine? So, yeah, so that was, I wanted a way to get people to essentially use more ammunition. So, yeah.
Would that be a goal just based on your sense of realism of like people actually do spray and just, shoot when it's not exactly necessary, or is it just the preference because it makes the game more fun, or what?
I think it makes the game a little bit more fun, but I also think it is a little bit more realism. In a real gunfight, people miss all the time. Like, you'll hear reports, officer fired 14 shots, and probably only like 5 of those connected.
Right.
Because especially when you got adrenaline running through you, when you've got stuff like that running through you, you are taught to shoot center mass. The headshot, the leg shot, that's bullshit. You shoot for the center. You shoot for the center of the chest, because that's the largest piece of meat you can hit. If you're moving, and on your radio, if you're moving, you're trying to find cover and you're shooting back at the same time, you're not hitting every time. And you're just dumping rounds.
Right.
Dumping rounds. Though that's mostly in like the military, police aspect. Honestly, in a civilian gunfight, you probably won't even empty your gun, let alone reload it. But yeah, usually it's the issue with people, they weren't using enough ammunition, and these were cops who were like scoring hits every turn, and they were like level 1, level 2. So yeah. Ooh, that's another thing. Yeah, so D20 Modern, and by extension 3.5 D&D, has something called dead levels. I know you've heard of this.
Yeah.
My goal was to eliminate those. So instead of like having 20 levels like D20 Modern has, there are 10 levels, and you always get a shit ton of stuff. I think it's 2 feet. Right now, it's 2 feet per level, which is a far cry from D&D, where you get 1 feet every 4 levels. Right, so everything's very dense. Everything's very compacted in Ops. Because I think 10 is the level max, but you can keep going. There's rules to just keep going, but 10 is like, I think a standard character, so you do 3, then 9 times 10. You get 21 feats by the time you're at level 10. That's a lot of feats for Ops and Tactics.
Yeah. And so, I guess with your system, you don't really care, like, what context people are leveling up in. It's not about, your character probably doesn't have, like, now you correct me if I'm wrong, but probably doesn't have, like, backgrounds and, like, this fluff sort of idea behind the character.
Well, they can, actually. There's space for that. There's space for that. There's your character has an occupation. That part I stole from D20 Modern. That's one of the things they did do right. They just didn't do it all. They didn't finish it. But yeah, your character has an occupation, to have background, stuff like that. You level like you would any other, I hate to use this phrase, but like 3.5 D&D game. You gain experience points for killing things. You also gain experience points for completing mission goals, completing, what do they call, like action, like heroic actions in combat. Like if you're getting shot, like let's say your friend goes down, you grab him and drag him back. That's a heroic action. You're gonna get some XP for it. The other way I did XP was 2 ways. XP resets per level, so you don't have that confusing issue of, well, I'm level 5 and, I have 4,000 XP and, how much is it to go? Like, what XP level do I need to be to get to level 6? No, like when you hit a level, it's like an MMO. You get a level, you scale, your bar goes back to 0, and then any extra goes into that new bar. The other thing is that there's personal XP versus party XP. So,
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, everybody who participated in the battle gets an XP amount. That's the larger amount. Specific kills get smaller XP. Like you get, I forget what it is, but everything goes off of what's something called battle value. Battle value is measured by primarily for like normal people, like people with guns and, sentient humanoid people. It's measured by what equipment they have. So if you have an AK-47, their battle value is going to be higher than somebody who has a handgun.
In terms of if they're your enemy and you kill them, you get more because you're fighting a tougher opponent?
That is correct. And their battle value, generally it shouldn't change in combat, but it can. But the battle value is basically, okay, this person has an AK, so that's 8 battle value. At level 4, so that's 4 battle values, such and such. And then what you do is you roll dice for it, and it's like, I think it's 1d2 times 50 or something for personal, and then like you roll the dice times 100, 1d4 or 1d2 times 100 for party XP. So it's still semi-random. You know, you're not just going to be like, I killed him 10 XP, kill him in 10 XP. But battle value was, I had to rewrite that because CR is garbage. CR is just, it's terrible.
Right. Yeah. I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. CR the way it works is confusing and it was terrible. There was no quick way that I could really figure out. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I probably stole it from somewhere, didn't realize it. If I did, I'm sorry. It's yours. Take it. But I needed a way to gauge people's equipment because Ops and Tactics is it's not 100% equipment based, but it's a good 70-30.
Right. I would hope so. I mean, in a modern setting, that's what really differentiates people.
Yeah.
So, in the bigger picture of things, as you're working all this stuff, I mean, obviously you're learning lessons and like, I loved the first Jagged Alliance. I didn't play Jagged Alliance 2, but...
You should play that.
Yeah, okay. I probably will. But, you know, I also suck at them, so I never really got into the meat of the system, whatever, but...
I'm terrible at them too, but, you know, they're fun. Play them.
But you ended up learning... you know, different system ideas from there, and I really like your attitude towards it, which is, you know, invite criticism, try out different stuff, you know, obviously being open to changing stuff is, which is, you know, it shouldn't have to be said, but it does need to be said that, you know, there's a lot of people out there that refuse to change things and fight people when they give you negative criticism instead of saying thank you, you know.
Yeah. Probably because a lot of people consider that negative criticism as an attack on them, which I gotta say, don't do that. Do not emotionally attach yourself to any particular rule set. Everything should be open for change. Another thing I would suggest is find the subject matter you want to go into and read the ever-loving fuck out of everything that's already tried to do that. Homebrew or full brew. What is... like full release. I don't know what the industry.
I don't know what it'd be like. From scratch.
Yeah. So I read a shit ton of I think it was probably somewhere between alpha and beta. I read a shit ton of books. I read through all GURPS books. So I have read every GURPS book cover to cover. Sorry, only fourth edition. No, I haven't read third. I have third, but I haven't read it. I've read through All Flesh Must Be Eaten. I read through the actual Ore series. I read through Hero System, which, that is a real page turner. I read through, D20 Modern 20, Modern 20, Pathfinder's shitty, The Modern Path, Twilight, Phoenix Command. I read through a bunch of modern games and I saw what they did. And Friday Night Firefight. I actually like that game. But I read through a bunch of games because I wanted to see how everybody else tackled firearms. And besides the Modern Path, D20 Modern, and Modern 20, and Spycraft. Yeah, can't forget about Spycraft. Oh, and Shadowrun too. I read through Shadowrun because that kind of counts. But besides those three, they all handled everything about firearms different. Some people were more detailed, some people were less detailed. A lot of systems, which actually prompted me to write Ops, was that everybody went generic. I didn't like that. That was one of the major reasons that made me write Ops and Tactics, because I don't want a heavy auto pistol. I want a Glock. I want a Car P9. I want, a Beretta Silver Pigeon, instead of over-under shotgun. I want a Mossberg 500. I want a Remington 870. I want not a light auto rifle. I want an AR-15. I want an M16. I want an AKM, an AKS-74U. Like, I want the guns. And there are a lot of guns that you cannot accurately represent without having a bunch of, the way GURPS does it is they're like, oh yeah, for this gun, here's this stack of things you can also do that you have to keep up with, as opposed to, just this gun does that. The downside is that you get a lot of guns. So, yeah. But read as much as you can. Read as many books in your genre as you want to, because Modern was different, but most likely people are probably already done what you want to do. And there are two ways to really write an RPG. There's top down and bottom up. Top down is you have the fluff and everything first, and you work your mechanics around that fluff. Bottom up is the opposite. Bottom up is like Ops and Tactics, like GURPS, like Hero, where the mechanics come first and the fluff comes after.
See, I would actually say that there has to be I agree, but I think there also has to be sort of a weird middle ground there because, at least from the guys I've talked to so far on this podcast, there's another philosophy of design basically, which is that you have a certain experience in mind, and the fluff and the mechanics both have to work with each other to create that experience. And it's, in a way that you could say that's the mechanics, but like...
I would still say that's bottom. I would still say that's top down, because when I said I wrote Ops and Tactics without fluff, I was very, very careful not to add any fluff unless I absolutely had to. It was one of those things where it was like, no, the only fluff in the game are gun manufacturers, and I mean that. Everything else is semi-generic. The upgrades are kind of generic. The ammunition is somewhat generic. Everything is generic but the gun. Because I didn't want to, unlike guns, because you can actually have a little bit of a mechanical difference between, say, something like a Glock 19 and an XD9. They're similar guns. Hell, they're damn near the same gun in Ops and Tactics. But you want one, pick one. You want the other, pick the other. But when it comes to stuff like upgrades, people aren't as invested, in my opinion, as Aimpoint versus EOTech,
No, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about now. You're confusing me.
Sorry. EOTech, they make scopes, and Aimpoint also makes scopes. They're two different scope manufacturers.
Oh, okay.
They do the same thing, and one can argue about guns, but again, I've found that people have a little bit more, at least the niche group of people that this is aimed at, have a bit more, what's the phrase? Attachment to specific firearms than anybody else. Yeah, because hell, I own a good chunk of the guns in Ops and Tactics already. So, it's like, I can pick the gun that I actually own in my safe over there.
Yeah.
But
for copyright reasons, is that why you have these fluff manufacturers and gun producers in your system?
No. I mean, when I say Glock, I mean Glock. Like Glock, as in Smyrna up the street from where I live in Georgia, Glock. Okay. There's something I actually found out. So I can say the name of the manufacturer. I can't both say a picture and the name of the manufacturer. So what will happen with a lot of like video games is what they'll do is they'll put the gun and they'll use a fake name. You can use the name and have a fake picture.
Oh, wow.
But you can't do both. Yeah, it's fair use.
That's weird, but okay.
Yeah, it's something I found out. And again, if somebody calls me out and I'm wrong, I'm going to get sued. That's perfectly fine. Any gun manufacturer that wants to sue me can feel free to do so. I'm just going to change the name of the guns and be like, and post a very public thing going, these people were dicks, so I had to change the name of the guns. Don't buy their guns. Have a nice day. So yeah. So that's, hey, it is what it is.
You're giving free advertising to them anyway. I mean, people can obsess over these guns in your RPG and they'd be like, you know what? I actually think this gun is better. I'm going to go buy that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually done that. I know it did it for me.
Joke, but that's hilarious if people have actually done it.
No, it's done. Yeah, it did. I've done it. I actually switched my off-road carry gun because of that, because of ops. So yeah.
That's pretty funny. So just out of curiosity, I mean, do you have like grenades of different kinds too? I imagine.
We have grenade types. I think they're like 9 or 10. Between all 4 books, about maybe 11, 12 different types.
A lot.
I mean, there are a lot of grenades out there. Even if we're just talking about generic, there's frag, HEDP, high explosive dual purpose. They've got incendiary grenade or like thermite and shit. Smoke, tear, sting, concussive, defensive. Defensive grenades are interesting because, I think an R1 would be an R1 grenade, which is a Russian grenade. Basically, the explosion and the kill ratio is farther than what a human can throw it.
Huh.
Yeah. So you're supposed to either throw it and run the opposite direction, or you're supposed to use it as a trap.
That's weird, but I love hearing about that because it just does get your mind jogging about how you can use something like that. So, all right, enough about the actual guts of the system. I want to know how your actual workflow is when you're working on it as a designer, because you seem to have a very practical attitude about it. You're not coming at it from any sort of high theoretical point.
Oh, fuck no. Hell no. People want to play a game. I have a strong belief that people pick a system over another system for two reasons. They like the fluff and the setting and everything like that, or they like the combat rules. Specifically the combat rules. Now, when I say combat rules, I'm not necessarily always speaking about, I punch him with this, I hit him. Any type of conflict resolution, I call combat.
Right.
That's one reason why people pick a system over another. So my goal is to make something that's, first of all, fun to play. If you don't like combat, don't play Ops and Tactics. That's, there's plenty of other systems like rules light, because Ops and Tactics is light, rules medium, leading rules heavy. So if you don't like combat, not the system for you. I'm sorry. It is what it is. There's also a I almost said weaker, like a light system called Squats, which is the simplified quick action tactic system. Yes, because Ops and Tactics spells oats. So we got the fit memes going on. There's also there's also a setting book coming out called Games, which is Great Adventures in Space. So yeah, Squats is basically a chopped down version of Ops and Tactics that's 3d6 only. It's basically to get people like rolling on Ops and Tactics. It's got most of the rules in there, so when you transition over, it's not as hard. It's simplified. I think there's only like 37, 38 guns total in the damn book, so it's simpler.
Is it something that you're making, or is it something that somebody...
I've already written it. It's already out. You can download the website right now. I did that in a week out of spite.
Why?
Yeah. Oh. So I posted a thread on 4chan, actually. And one guy was like, oh, crafting rules? That's bloat. Oh, this is bloat. It's too bloated. I'm like, okay. So I stripped it down completely. It's 70 pages. And I said, there's your bloat. There's your bloat-free game. Yeah, I basically wrote that because crafting is not bloat. Now, there is a lot of crafting in the game, but it's not bloat. That's something that you need to, depending on what kind of game you're making, crafting should never be bloat.
Well, how do you distinguish bloat from just extra features that, tie directly into the core of the system?
For Ops? Well, I'll do a general one. If it doesn't fit the farther away that gets from the system, the easier it needs to be. To give an example, spaceships. There are spaceships in Advanced Arms. It's basically a two-dimensional. It's a one-dimensional like mini game. You build a ship, you have a ship, you fly around in the ship, and if you combat, it's between one axis. How far away you are from each other. That's the only thing you care about. You don't care about positions and stuff like that. There are obstacles, but that game is a mini game. You can play that game in 20 minutes tops.
See, I find that very interesting, especially that example specifically, because I don't know if you've ever played XCOM, like the original XCOM.
Yeah.
But, there the game is a turn-based strategy, tactics, team-based thing, and it's got so much depth to it, what you can actually do with all the characters and your action points and stuff like that. But you're also, at the same time, you have the geosphere where you're managing your resources and you're building bases, and then you're hunting aliens, so you shoot down the alien ships and they crash land, but the thing where you're shooting other ships and shit, that's all very...
It's a mini game.
It's a mini game, and it feels like a good break in the pacing of the game instead of this thing that you're worried about.
You start off with you start off with one button, disengage. The other button you have is I think you can like turn your shield on. Like, it doesn't get complicated at all. It's like, this is a mini game. This game is, hey, shoot him until either you go down or he goes down, or you can disengage.
Yeah.
It's not complicated. The farther you get away from the core services of the rules, the easier the game needs to be.
And when you say easy, I assume you mean like simpler and more easy to learn, not the
easy. Yeah. easy to play, easy to learn, easy to. I mean, you can have challenge of it. It needs to be easier to dive into and dive out of, because that's not what you're here for.
Yeah, and that's very. See, now, I haven't made any RPGs or anything like that. I've been working on an RPG for on and off for 10 years, and I've only recently gotten serious about even wanting to finish it and put it out. But
finish it.
I know that for myself, the appeal at one time long ago was to, just keep adding shit forever, and then there was no, that's what you're here for statement about the game. Like you called it ops and tactics. That gives you a very clear idea of what you're trying to simulate and why you would buy the game. But I know that there are a lot of people making indie RPGs, and they're just floating around with no core idea of what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and that's usually where you see the fantasy heartbreaker. It's usually when you see the people who give up on a game because they're trying to compete with the big boys. They're trying to compete with all the fucking splat books made by hundreds of people in D&D. Or they're trying to compete with Pathfinder and stuff like that. And if you're just a one-man team, you're not going to do that. That's not going to happen. Before you even start writing, you need to figure out what you're writing. That's probably the most important thing, period. You need to figure out what you're writing. Adding more stuff to the game needs to have a reason. Even when it comes to guns, if I can clone the gun by just copy pasting it, it's not going in the book, because I don't need to put it in the book. I can say it's this gun, or hell, a GM can say it's this gun, but named differently.
Yeah.
When I first wrote, if I had taken that advice when I first started writing the game, there'd be a hell of a lot less handguns. I can tell you that right now. But yeah, I came to that realization when we probably jumped 1,100 guns, and I was like, yeah, I can keep adding them, but they're not, historically relevant. They're not terribly historically relevant. They're not, you're not adding anything. You're just making the book bigger.
Yeah. So I wonder, from your perspective, this is probably an obvious answer, but to what extent do you think, well, the game needs to have this kind of gun, so I'm going to make sure there is one? Or is it just the fetishist sort of, I love guns and I want to have all the kinds there are, and I'm going to put everything in that's relevant, and you don't think about how it balances and the selection,
Well, that's the wonderful thing about tactics, I say. Balance went out the window. The amount of guns in the book dictates that there is no best. There are better guns for better situations. There are better guns and better calibers, but have this, that, and the other. But there is no best gun, period. And I lie, there is a best gun, but it depends on what kind of gun you're looking at. And most people, it's like a range of guns. But when you need to really look at, why am I adding this gun in the book? Choice, for the longest time, and even to this day, even to the stuff I'm about to add, probably within the next week and a half, choice is a big example. If there's not enough choice of a certain caliber, then I'll find some more of a similar caliber, that are either cheaper, shittier, better, that you can choose.
Because what you really want is for the player to, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you kind of want to get it to a point where it's like real life and people are able to shop for what they want, but there is no clear answer.
That's actually one reason why I started writing Spider-Bot and why I started writing that gunsmith genre. I've been talking about that for months, years even. And I got it done. It's not ready for release yet because I'm a terrible coder and I need to fix things and add things and stuff like that. But one of the things I noticed is that when people play Ops and Tactics, nobody builds a gun store. They just go, you can pick whatever you want out of the book. So what I noticed with my playtesters is that they would just pick the same gun regardless of the character. There was no limit, and they would pick the best ammunition, obviously, because they generally the GM was like, well, I'll give you this money plus a hit of bi-weekly money. So they had enough money to buy exactly what they wanted. I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. So I made people have to choose between choices they might not, feel are the best of choices.
Exactly. That makes perfect sense. So you don't currently have the store system.
Oh no, it's done. The program is finished, but it's not ready for prime time yet.
Okay.
We're still undergoing tests.
Very interesting. And when you're working on the actual like revisions or updates, especially like a whole new edition, just you said you were working in that Licks program.
Yes.
But you don't do the actual like word processing in there, do you? I assume you write something.
Yeah, I do all the word processing. I do everything. I'm the one who types the book. That is true for every book except 2 right now. I did not write the monster manual, which is the field identification guide, FID. And I'm currently not working on the actual game, the setting to the books that will use the books. I'm not writing that right now 'cause I'm focused on that. But no, I wrote all of it.
No, I know that you wrote it, but I'm asking like what your workflow and the tools that you use, like do you have like a big scrap of like notebooks that you write in with a pen?
I have. So I think it was like 2011. I bought from an anime convention this like leather bound book that's not really leather bound. It's like you slip a drawing tablet into it, not like a 5.5 by 8, something like that. And it's basically a leather cover. I've been writing in that for 7 years. If I get an idea, I write it down. If I work things out on that page, but generally, nowadays I work things out through the Discord, through suggestions people send me. Notepads are a big thing, like .txt files are a thing.
Right.
And some of it just comes straight from the hip. But no, yeah, when I first started out, writing stuff down, working stuff out on paper was a huge thing. You need to have a notebook. That is a requirement. You have to have a design notebook.
Yeah.
When I was designing the Magic system, I had to have a design book. I had to sit and explain to myself personally how Magic works. I had to draw stuff out. I had to, figure out, okay, well, if I do this with this, what happens with that? So yeah, writing stuff down is very important.
Yeah, because I would agree, and I'm glad to hear that you said that, this sounds like you're doing this on actual paper and stuff, which maybe it's just me, but if you're starting out, anything on a computer is useless. You need to be able to flip through those pages and go back and look at stuff like that. That's something I've noticed. When in the early years, alpha, beta, 1, 2, yeah. Any notes on the computer? Useless. Same here. Like I got to a point where I was like, all right, screw this paper stuff. I want to make it real. And it felt like it was official and real once I put it on the computer. And I started typing up all these pages, and I can type and I can write great on the computer. And then it was like next day, I'm like, actually, I want to change something. And now I feel like I can't because it's on the computer and it's shitty to go back and edit. But I actually ended up just purely doing almost everything on paper. And I only use the computer when I need to like turn it into a PDF or something.
I wouldn't say don't do that. I would say get a working version and then edit off of that as you go. That's what I did. That's what worked for me. Fucking however long I'm writing this goddamn. You definitely want to actually sit down and have a version you can look at, but you also want to have a version that you can edit. And PDFs are not for editing, period. Do not, under any circumstance, think you can get away with just making a PDF and then editing that PDF. You're going to be making that PDF a bunch of times. That's why I suggested Licks, because you can type in Licks, you can write in Licks, and you can make it to a PDF, and you can go, oh, that sucks. And you got you can close it out, change some stuff, and then preview it again. Okay, that's better. Like, you need a program that you can continuously preview and continuously look at.
Yeah, see, that's probably the problem I had, is because I was like, maybe Google Docs and maybe something
Google
else.
Docs is also pretty useless for this. I've seen people get drowned in Google Docs. I would say that Google Docs is probably not good for any kind of design like this, because you need to be able to very quickly look at like page 1 and page 13, or you need to go and look at page 9 and page 11. You can't. Google Docs basically works like it's like a word processor. You can scroll back up, you got to scroll back down, scroll back up again. Like it's not really conducive to writing something like this, because if you want your system to be tight, then you need to be able to review rules with other rules and look at them side by side.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear
I
that.
have 4 monitors, so that's what helps me out. Like I'll game in one, text box in another, music in a third, and Discord in a fourth. So more monitors are better for me.
Yeah. That's such practical, useful insight. I mean, I'm stuck basically trying to outline and make my current, make an actual finished version of my rules, but I don't really have a good tool for putting it all together, and so I'm kind of circling around trying different things, and I tried Scribus and I got something that looked decent, but it just wasn't convenient enough once I decided I wanted to change something, and plus there was just bugs in it. It crashed when I was using it as a word processor. Didn't feel like it was useful for word processing and stuff, so maybe that's really, I mean, for the planning, with the early conceptual stuff, I think you want to use pen and paper and be able to visualize things and sketch things and all that kind of freedom of making notes that way if something just occurs to you. But yeah, I can see why you'd want to have, especially like a versatile program like that you can get a feeling for what your actual finished product is going to be as you're working out the details.
Yeah. That's really important, especially like I said, if your game, Ops and Tactics has to be tight. It cannot be loose, and it's written specific, and I speak specifically on rules heavy games and games with a lot of like mechanics, stuff like that. These games people expect to work mechanically. They expect the rules to work mechanically. One of the major fallings of a lot of systems I've seen is they offload rules handling to GMs. Now, in a smaller game like Dungeon World or whatever, I forget, like Fate or something like that works fine because there's not a lot of rules. But when we're talking about, like, case in point, I got a question. I forget what version it was, but somebody asked me, and I had never thought about it. What rules do we use when we're trying to fire a rocket launcher at a specific person? That's a very specific rule. But it's a one that may come, like, you may just want to go, fuck that dude, and just shoot an RPG-7 at him. So, it's a rule that needs to be there. So you can't just say, well, you imply this and imply that. You have to state it. That's what makes rules medium and rules heavy games so hard to write. That's why D&D 3.5 sucked, because there was a lot of arbitration with the GM. So your game quality would vary immensely with your GM.
That's a great point. I mean, I personally love the idea of having some negotiability with the GM, and I think you're always going to have that, especially in these sort of in really unique or strange circumstances. You don't want to even have every single contingency be written about, and you have to look it up all the time. But
yeah, I mean, the GM should primarily, in my opinion, the GM should be the one running combat, and he should be the one running combat and storyline. If he has to arbitrate combat, it slows it down like a motherfucker, because that's when you start to get arguments and shit. And I wrote Ops and Tactics for min-maxers and cheaters. That's who I wrote it specifically for. Because you can't, because the game is based on edge cases, not standard case. I wrote it specifically for that because I myself am a min-max. And
right, I see.
Yeah. So, you can't do anything bullshit in the game is probably there on purpose, because there's probably a lot of downsides to it. Case in my favorite example, there was one of our playtesters. Well, there's two examples, but it's a similar thing. We had one guy who took a full auto machine gun and was hitting better than a dude with a sniper rifle at the same range. And then there's what we like to call Revolver Man. Revolver Man, Revolver Man was firing 15 rounds a turn.
What?
Yes, two revolvers. 18 rounds a turn. He had two revolvers. He emptied both of them, reloaded one, and emptied that one. Because of how the feats work. The downside is he had spec'd into that model revolver. Like he couldn't use, like if you gave him, I think it was single action army, so he was fanning them. That's how he got so fast. By the way, which is technically possible. Jerry Mitchell actually did that.
He's basically Revolver Ocelot.
No, he was out shooting Revolver Ocelot. He was out shooting him by a good three shots a minute. But he was, Revolver Man is only good at exactly that. If there's any problem Revolver Man has to solve that cannot be resolved with that, he's fucked. If you take his revolvers away, he's fucked. There's generalization of specialization. You can go, the feats are kind of weighted towards specialization. You get some good shit at the end, but if you want to be a generalist, shotgun feat here, rifle feat here, handgun feat there, armor feat there, that's fine. I almost forgot to mention about armor. But before we go back to my shitty system, keep a change log. That's extremely important. Everything you change that's not a spelling correction, write it down.
I assume you mean like after you've put out an actual full version.
No, I mean let's say I open up and I say, I'm going to change extended barrel to give 10% instead of 5%. Okay, I'm going to then go to my text file and I'm going to say change extended barrel from 5% to 10%. I'm doing the change log as I make the change. That's extremely important. Always do that.
What is the big gain there? Because I have tons of old notebooks full of shit that I don't care about anymore. And I guess you can think of it kind of like a change log, but
that's not a change log.
A place where I keep track of anything.
That's not a change log. A change log, I use a text file, but a change log of the change is a notation of things you've already tried before. The reason you want to keep a change log because you don't want to make the same mistake more than once. Also, they're very good for stepping back and looking at, okay, when we change from this version to this version, what's the difference between like the last version what's in between current and the last version of, I think it's 5th edition, what do we change? So if you ever have to go back down that ladder, you can go, okay, well, we're going to make these good changes and these bad and leave these ones out.
Yeah, I guess especially, you're doing it in such a smarter way than I am, and you have actual people testing these things and playing it out. So you get real feedback, and then you can actually, make the change log according to that, and then presumably you can also then more easily match up, a certain time period where the game was at a certain point, say, okay, what were the kinds of problems that were happening in this era of playing, and you wouldn't repeat the same mistakes as often because,
because you've already documented everything you've changed. I'd like to keep a change log because it shows me personally where what I've done, like what has changed, what do we need to throw out a release and test it? Is the change? Because right now I've been writing for about 6 months with no release. That's very unusual for me, and the change log is fucking huge. I've had a bunch of private releases for playtesters and such, and I notate that in the change log, but I use a change log as a marker for, okay, I've changed a few things, I've fixed, some errors, let's throw it out there and see what happens.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Huh. I'm gonna have to start doing that.
Yeah, change logs are very important, extremely important.
I
notate additions, I notate removals, feats, things like that.
If you let's say you got a point where you're like, I should just reword this rule. I'm not actually changing it. It's just reworded. Does that count?
I would still put that in change log. I would say reworded to blank and what it did.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you have, I guess then you would have to have a pretty tight idea of, what your official document is. You don't have multiple versions of a document that. But
when you make a change, you notch up the document number. For me, that's what I do. I don't like stuff changing. I've only done maybe 2 in the entire development. And most of those were like, oh shit, I forgot to actually put this change in, and it's super important. So I'll stealth edit, and then it'll be the same version, but I'll notate the stealth edit on the change log. So you don't want to have multiple versions bouncing out there. You always want to have the latest and greatest being the one that's represented. And that's actually a problem I had with Option Tactics. I was an idiot and I released it on TG so fast. So yeah. I had people, especially within the time period, people were bouncing between 1st edition and 8th edition, and there's like a shit ton of difference.
Oh, right, yeah.
So,
and I guess that goes back to that Lix program again, and having something that, because I'm thinking about, I don't know how many total pages your current edition is, but
on the core rulebook is like 300-ish.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
down from 500.
So right,
Lix help.
I'm looking at the same problem myself right now, and I'm already, dreading the prospect of going back and editing a little thing and whatever. Even if I had a change log and I was trying to be, careful about not just losing something in the middle and then forgetting about it and whatever. You were saying that program really helps to be able to compare things at different points in the book and all of that. So that tool has to be such a big.
Well, I think that honestly, it's like, even when I was using Open Office, I was generating, I would use Open Office to make a PDF. I'd look at the PDF, I'd scroll through the PDF, I would see anything I didn't like, and I'd go change it, and then make another one, and then change that and make another one, change that and make another one. Then when I was happy with what I've made after looking at it 40 times. Then I would go through the bookmarking. Thankfully, Lix, I don't have to bookmark anymore. It does that shit automatically. But up until about 5th edition, which was pretty recent, 3 years ago, I was doing all the bookmarks by hand.
That's really interesting because I can tell you, you haven't been on the GDG Discord. I invited you there today, but I'm sure you will see if you hang out there that people are really having a pain in the ass with all of this stuff. Exactly the stuff that you've figured out are exactly the things that people are struggling with, because it is so tricky to write such a huge document and keep it organized and keep it crisp and not get lost along the way. I feel like that alone, if you had a good...
Yeah, Lix makes that a whole lot... The latex language makes that a whole lot easier. It resolves a lot of issues with that.
Yeah. That's cool. I can't wait to see if people actually, start changing the way that they...
I hope they do, because I can tell you right now, I've seen some homebrew stuff that's being sold, and it looks like it was written in Open Office, and you can tell. It's a big difference.
Yeah, we had somebody here who's, put out quite a few actual war games, not RPGs, but he was talking about using Open Office, and he managed to tweak it enough and get the most out of it to the point where he's making some good looking stuff. But
it's still Open Office.
Yeah, I tried using it and
I think Open Office can bookmark, but you have to. You really have to be very careful about your headings and stuff like that. You have to really know that program.
Getting away from the workflow and the system side of it a little bit, you wanted to talk about the difference between simulation, realism, and believability, and that's something I think is a worthwhile conversation no matter what kind of thing you're doing, even if it's not modern, if you're dealing with magic and fantasy and everything.
I'm going to use modern because it's what I know, but so simulations are exactly what they say on the tin. You are trying to simulate as many aspects of a real life thing as possible. the trope namer for this game, for that kind of game, is Phoenix Command without even a shadow of a doubt. A close second is probably Twilight 2000, not 2013. They're written in 2000. Phoenix Command's turns are done in, if I remember correctly, they're done in ticks. Each tick is 1/2 of a second.
Wow.
So it's you will drown in that game. It is very, very simulated. You calculate hit probability. Like if you fire a buckshot shell, right? Buckshot has 9 pellets or 8 pellets, either one, right? You have to then do the ballistics for 9 pellets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It is very, very simulation.
Is there anybody that actually enjoys that?
There are plenty of people who enjoy it. There are plenty. I've seen people play it. It's, once you know the system, it's not as bad, but it's one of those like Dwarf Fortress level steep learning curve type thing.
Okay.
What was the second one? I said simulation,
realism, and believability.
Realism is about a notch below that. Realism is you notch most things correctly, but there's some things are abstracted. Ops and Tactics falls under this. GURPS falls under this. What else? Those are, somewhat realistic systems. GURPS is actually higher on that list, though. GURPS is probably somewhere between realism and simulation, because it doesn't quite jump to realism yet. Sorry, it doesn't quite jump to simulation yet, but it's there. Ops and Tactics had to actually abstract a bunch of shit, like ranges and barrel lengths and things like that, because everything is still a 5-foot square. So I'm not doing like, this gun has a range of 320 meters. Nobody cares, for lack of a better phrase. 5 feet is 5 feet. And even in the realm of bullets and stuff like that, 5 feet is not that big of a difference.
Huh.
25 feet is, but 5 feet, nah. 5 feet isn't enough ballistically for it to be like a game changer.
No, right.
So that's believability. Well, that's realism, where it's like, yeah, it leans more toward, it's a whole lot more realistic than believability, which I'll get into the third one. But it's not like, holy shit, we're rolling dice until forever. Believability is stuff like, I'm not using D20 Modern because that's not believable at all. I'm trying to think of a good believable system. Shadowrun. That's a good believable. Shadowrun does a very good job at making you believe that those guns are guns. Shadowrun does a very good job of, making things feel, like they hurt. But it doesn't go into the minute nuances of things like caliber. It doesn't go into the nuances of, what is it called? Like caliber, and I think it actually does care about the full auto fire rate of guns, but not like to the point where you're talking about 300 rounds per second, 400 rounds per second. It doesn't go into that minutia. It's just like, oh yeah, this is believable. GURPS Lite is believable. Yeah, GURPS Lite is definitely believable. Trying to think of any other modern system that I can think of that are probably believable. All Flesh Must Be Eaten, maybe? Kinda. That's kinda believable-ish. I'd probably put that more on Rules Light-ish than anything else. It's not Rules Light by anybody. I'm going to piss somebody off by saying that, but fuck it. It's believable. Like, you believe, you don't have to suspend your disbelief all that much to, actually play the game.
Right.
Games like D20 Modern, you kind of do. Because D20 Modern is none of these. D20 Modern is straight fantasy. The reason I say it is because D20 Modern made the mistake of including the caliber of the firearm, but doing nothing with it.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So, in D20 Modern, all guns do 2D something. They're essentially, glorified crossbows. I think, like, the biggest rifle does 2D12, shotguns do somewhere between 2D10 and 2D8, and handguns do between 2D4 and 2d8, I believe. I think a Desert Eagle does 2d8. That like 9mm and 10mm only do 2d6, and those are very different caliber. 9mm is a standard service cartridge. 10mm you can hunt with. 44 Magnum you can hunt with. They're not trivial rounds. They're not 2d6. But D20 Modern basically just kind of crammed them all in there because, it was 2001 and we didn't really understand guns and blah, 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 blah. Whatever.
Right. It was just to feel cool, like you were doing something with guns, not even trying to get into the believable in the sense of an expert would recognize and be able to strategize around, things based on their real life knowledge. That's one of the things I would think with a game like this is, can somebody who's familiar with guns just step in and say, oh, well, I already know I want to use this gun in this situation because...
Oh, yeah. And with an ops?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah. Hell yeah. Definitely. 100%.
Yeah, I'm saying that's probably the, somewhere in that realism range where you're trying to make it realistic to the point where, somebody who just has real world knowledge can step in and have an advantage even over somebody else. Whereas simulation is like, nobody knows, whoever is trying to simulate that, maybe if you get into like a forensic level of
yeah, that's, and honestly, realism caliber doesn't matter all that much. To be perfectly honest with you, bullet size, the one factor when it comes to gunfights in like real life gunfights, it's not the size of the bullet, it's how many rounds you had. More rounds beat 9mm and 45 ACP, which are usually the two most heavily debated, are for the most part about the same wound wide. One opens up bigger, sure. One does better in Full Metal Jacket at close range, sure. One has more shot. And they found that it's the amount of shots that matter in a gunfight. Ops and tactics, obviously I'm not going to do that because that invalidates a lot of my game. But the other flip side to this is how you handle health.
Oh, yeah.
How you handle health is probably more important than how you handle weapons. Because that's the reason why D20 Modern is fantasy. Because the way they handle health is a standard HP bar that will exponentially outpace any weapon in the game. It's D&D with guns.
Right.
GURPS handles it very well, but it's like pretty much anything, most things will kill you. Ops and Tactics handles it by using, there's two types of health. There's extended hit points and core hit points. Your core hit points are they're quasi-meat. It's like, hey, I am meat. And if you take a critical, those are points you get hit on. Extended hit points are stuff that grows, but doesn't grow exponentially. It's level 1, level 10, an AK with no armor will still take your ass out. It just might take a turn or two to get you there, because you will bleed it out.
Yeah.
Phoenix Command, the simulation is just, we're talking like you have to actually do bleed, like how, based on the caliber you're bleeding this much, like it's simulation. But yeah, how you handle health is probably just as important, if not more important, than how you handle guns, how you handle weapons in general.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask about that. Not only that, but your physical exhaustion, stuff like that, I imagine would affect your aim and...
Yeah, but that's leading towards simulation, because nobody wants to be like, yeah, I was going to shoot him, but I'm tired. That's boring. And also most gunfights, even in Ops and Tactics don't last over, I've never seen a gunfight last over 10 rounds, which is 1 minute. And you're not going to be tired in 1 minute of
I see. Yeah. And then, realistically, too, you'll have adrenaline that will last for more than a minute, and you're not going to feel too tired when your life is on the line and bullets are flying at you. That
adrenaline's that's gonna be like, nope, we're up, I'm awake, let's go. So that's the other thing about Ops, and I'm not sure, I can't speak on GURPS because it's been so long since I've read that. I know D20 Modern does this wrong, but armor will save your life. And I mean that in the most literal point, like as literally as I can. You don't need feats to wear armor, and even so you can wear armor and it gives you damage reduction, okay, to a certain type of damage.
Right.
It also has armor points, so you can basically get your armor chewed up. Armor, it gives you another hit point, like a hit point bar, okay? Getting shot without armor means you will bleed and you take the damage directly to your core hit points or to your extended hit points, okay? You don't get a lot of them really at all. If you're wearing armor, you don't bleed and the armor takes some of that damage away from you and onto the armor.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, some armors, you can just, let's say I have an AR-15, 223, 5.56 that does 4d6 damage, right? Sorry. Is it 5d4? Sorry, 5d4 damage. If I'm wearing a vest that stops 5 points of ballistic damage, most of that's gonna go through. So, you can always bypass somebody's armor just like real life by doing more damage and the armor will stop. It'll help, but it won't help by it a lot.
Right.
But it will probably save your life. I have seen armor in games it saved my life in a game. Where a guy got shot and a shot that should have killed him didn't kill him, but put him, on his ass. He was like, oh shit, I almost died.
Yeah.
So yeah. That's how Ops handles armor. If you take the feats, you get the extra shit, the defense bonus and all that stuff like that. But anybody can take a vest off of a shelf and put it on.
What about riot shields and stuff like that? Does that come into play?
Yes, it does. Riot shields provide, depending on what it's made out of, they either provide cover or defense or both.
That's interesting.
So you can make cover in one direction. You can be like, here's a giant metal shield. I'm going to point it that in north, and I'm going to, stand behind it, and I've got full cover because it's fucking, 8 feet tall and, 4 feet wide. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. I wonder what is the most people at a single session that you've seen playing the game, and how does the game scale with more players in terms of pacing and stuff?
I've seen 6 people and it got nuts. If the people know how to play the game, quick as fuck. If they don't, you're gonna be in time for some frustration. Just like any system. Yeah. The one thing I can say about Ops that is a problem that I can't fix is that there can be a lot of bookkeeping depending on the complexity of the character. I mean, if you just have Glock 19, 1 mag, filled with Full Metal Jacket, 15 plus 1 rounds, cool. You got your armor score, you got your roll, your attack roll, stuff like that, and your saving throws, you're done. Cool. If you want to go full tier 1 operator with, all right, I've got an MP5, MP5, A4 with six round magazines, and this magazine's filled with AP, and this magazine's filled with blanks, this magazine's filled with Full Metal Jacket, and these 2 magazines are filled with jacket hollow points. I've got that gun, I've got my sidearm with my 1911 and 2 mags for that, and I've got a backup gun on my ankle, and it can get really complex. The text-based character sheet helps a lot with that. The printout character sheet has space for that as well. So it really depends on the character. Magic is actually one of the things that I wouldn't say it's very heavy bookkeeping, because you don't have to but you do build your spells yourself. So generally people who are bad at math shouldn't be magicians in universe or out of universe, because magic is intelligence based.
Right.
But you do build your own spells.
Huh.
So to give an example, D&D does Fireball. Fireball has a fixed set of damage and a fixed set of range and a fixed set of whatever. Cool. You don't say Fireball. You say, I'm going to take evocation, fire damage. The fire damage starts out as 1D, I think it's 1D2 touch for 2 spell point. You then can increase the dice size and the dice amount. You turn that from a touch spell to a ranged area effect, and then you give a range for that, and then you can increase the area effect or whatever like that. The way Magic ties into the game is that they're all skills. you put points into your skills, and that's how big of a spell you can build. So let's say that fireball spell costs 14 points. Well, I've got a total modifier of a 20, which is pretty high, or I've got equipment that allows me to increase that, increase my, quote unquote modifier for that spell school. Then you can build that mental limit, which basically limits how many points you can spend total.
And that's so smart.
Yeah. I don't like dancing spells. Even though they're kind of magic bombs, but they're kind of not. Because you can rebuild them on the fly, but there's a lot of penalties. There's also ways to just avoid that shit entirely and like do casting with your wand, or you can cast with, is it with wand? It's with wand, and then there's something else, but I forget what it is. So there's ways to get around that. There's also ways to and because the way magic works is that it's all written down. It's all spells in a book that you write for you. There's different feats where you can I'm going to compress it. It costs a little bit more, but I can write twice the amount of the same effects for half the cost. So there are ways to, play around with magic, stuff like that. So it's very much so a really modular system. But the downside though is that it's very limit specific. There's no wish spell. It's really more this group does this amount of things. There's no.
Well, it sounds like you're trying to make it tactical.
Basically.
Not subjective and negotiable.
Yeah. It's very hard to negotiate a fireball to the face. So yeah, it's still very tactical. And to quote one of my playtesters, he says that playing Magic and Ops makes me feel like a real maid.
That's so crazy. You're sort of blowing my mind by even bringing up the Magic thing. I guess you mentioned it, but I didn't really sink in that you're really including it as a valid part of the game.
Oh yeah, and because it's a skill, you can I'm also going to take the handgun feat. So,
shit.
Well, I think one of my best builds was a mage who took a black powder revolver, and we have a saying in the Ops Discord called magic delivery system. Okay?
Yeah.
If you get good enough at magic, the bullet doesn't mean shit. I mean, there was a point, but I was level 10. I was max level. And I was firing a bullet for 3d6 and doing 14d10 damage of acid. So yeah, magic delivery systems.
And it's designed to be that way. You don't see that as being a flaw. That's what you earn.
Oh no, we've had a healer that took a 22, like a Ruger 1022, it's a little 22 target pistol, enchant the bullets because you can't enchant guns themselves. You can only enchant black powder guns, and there's an in and out of character reason for that. The out of reason is that makes shit broken as fuck. We tried it. But they enchanted a brick of 22, which is 500 rounds, with a healing spell that healed for more than the 22 damage did, guaranteed. So they were shooting people and they were gaining health from it.
You're really making me sort of respect you on a different level now, because this is some sort of bizarre having the best of both worlds thing where I fully expected that you just weren't going to have that much fun with this system because it needed to be realistic. We were talking about realism, and now we're suddenly...
Oh, magic, we throw it out the window. Yeah, magic throws realism out the window. Magic is what we like to call, it's believable. Magic, for lack of a better phrase, is a science. There's not that much that's really known about it, fluff-wise. It's not that old, so, we basically got the basics down. Illusion. Enchantment I had to change. Enchantment isn't D&D enchantment. That was stupid. Enchantment is taking items and putting magical powers and things on them. That's what enchantment. Yeah. Not enchanting somebody where they follow your... the other reason is that, so opsandtactics was built from the ground up to be a PvP system.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that because you were talking about monsters at some point, and now I have to wonder, what are the actual monsters we're talking about?
Terrifying. Yeah, opsandtactics is primarily built around PvP, as in player versus player, as in there's no broken bullshit. I mind control you. No, that's dumb. It's about PvP. It's
So the GM,
I did.
the GM is literally just refereeing between players fighting each other, or does he handle his own team?
Oh, he can handle monsters as well. He can do that as well. I mean, that's when I say PvP, I mean like the GM should be able to, originally, before I got a guy who does my monsters for me, when thank God for craft, it was literally the GM rolls up characters quicker, he makes like quick characters and they fight against the players, and they're just regular characters that fight against the player. So they had to be compatible.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking, and I was going to ask, like, that it sounds like running the game, just my default assumption would be that running the game requires you to basically, have fully developed characters on both sides. So
I mean, you don't have to have fully developed characters, but I would say prior to Kraft and his writing, yeah. Now he wrote a bunch of NPCs that have equipment done, that have stuff like that, like equipment, attacks, the whole shebang. So you can just pick those out. Like, I want 2 cops and a SWAT guy. There you go.
Right. And for the paperwork side of it, like if you're running the game, how much paperwork is it for the GM to manage these guys and their health and their ammo and all that stuff? Because that's something I'm having a problem with, in my own system. I want to have, a sort of, deep enemies, or, aside from just bosses, they should have interesting enemies. But as soon as you do that, you have to have tracking for a bunch of stuff, unless you just want to hand wave it.
Well, yeah. The way we handle it, it really boils down to character theory. So the theory is that there's 2 types of stats you have for a character: static and dynamic. Dynamic is things like health, things that will change very quickly in a game. Health, trying to think. Health, ammo. That's really it. That's all I can think of. Health and ammo are probably the 2 most static things about Ops and Tactics. There's probably something else, but that's not really in the scope of a battle. Abilities are things that, like, I can do this, that's it. I can do that, whenever. This is you're talking about for monsters and stuff. But yeah, so you want to generally keep the stat, like static is fine. If you have a reflex of 6, that's not going to change during the middle of the game. You're not going to go, like things like level drain and something that got fucking tossed out. That shit's stupid and it takes too damn. I've seen a level drain character complete, like not the character, it was a monster, completely grind a D&D game to a halt because they're like, you just lost a level. And I'm like, what? I had to level down? So we spent 20 minutes leveling down.
I never heard of that before, but that sounds retarded.
Poisons and stuff like that will change your ability scores, but that's not nearly as bad as having to de-level a character.
But in your game, like, do you have, you wouldn't obviously have like a full character sheet for an enemy, but how much, like, do you have a separate template that you use for? Yeah,
there's a template in the books that you can do. You can copy paste it. Into like a text file. But yeah, generally when it comes to like NPCs, equipment, you just list out what equipment they have, which again, which is pre-done. If you want to add stuff to it, you want to have to make some modifications, but stuff like reflex saves, skills that are permanent to combat, health.
You were making it sound like you wanted to have, I forget what the term was that you used, but you wanted it to not be something that gets made up. Like, there's not a lot of improv. The rules have to work, and the rules have to handle different situations. And you're talking about that RPG,
PvP. You're talking about PvP stuff?
Well, in PvP or whatever, if you.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I know what you're talking about when I was saying about you can't just arbitrate rules like that.
Yes.
Combat and characters are a little bit different. The only real arbitration you can do with combat and characters is kind of like, he got shot, but not really, so he didn't take any damage. And that's kind of bullshit. So, stuff like that, like a NPC works 95% the same as a PC character. If you go through the same rules that you would go through as if you shot a character or a monster or a dragon or a slime.
Right. So
unless there are exceptions within that, like for example, slimes can't take critical damage because they're slimes. Unless there are exceptions for that, you just follow the rules, like the regular combat rules. So somebody who has run a game, somebody who's played a game can run a game very quickly because there's no difference of, well, monsters act like this, humans act like this.
Yeah. And then even if you just wanted to, like, let's say I was running this, or let's say if you are, and you want to quickly, generate a character or generate an enemy, how much have you as a designer tried to streamline the process of getting the ability to make monsters or other human NPCs?
NPCs basically boil down to just know the system better and roll the character faster. There's some things you can obviously ignore, but it's a little bit less time than actually, like, what's the phrase? Like making a real character. Monsters are a little bit faster because all monsters follow a template, and you can just use the template to make a monster. Okay. Because there are still hit dice and stuff like that. But we use them a little different. Huh. So yeah. So monsters and stuff like that are if you want to make your own monsters, that's a little bit intensive. You're not just going to be able to shit out your own quick monster and it be special.
Yeah. Okay. Because I know, just the monster handling in general and NPCs, the equivalents of the PCs, like a rival gang or whatever they would be. That's a real pain in the ass for designers to try to figure out how much information should you really include in there. I guess that's where doing all this research on different systems and seeing how other guys handle it helps to inform that, because you realize actually you don't need these 10 things.
Yeah, like you don't need to know, what skills they have. Generally, when it comes to combat, stealth, athletics, and acrobatics are pretty much the only 3 skills you need to bother with. You just need to figure out how many of those they have. You can just give them you don't have to go through you can go through the full, character building, but health, things that are super important to combat. Health, what weapon they're carrying, their bonuses to that weapon through feats and stuff like that. And, that's really it.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you, you said that you were going to bring this up yet, but the other projects that you've worked on.
Oh, yes. I worked on a precursor to Option Tactics. It was a tabletop RPG version of Resident Evil 2. It used some of the rules, but it was basically a D20 modern hack. That is not released for public consumption because it is terrible. And I mean, I may throw in stuff like the green herb, red herb, whatever in like Modern Magicka. It's like a nod to Capcom garbage. But yeah, I worked on that. I've had a few ideas for a Rules Light Super Sentai game that never went anywhere because it was, after working on something like Option Tactics, you look at its Rules Light system and you go like, God damn, this is boring as fuck. So yeah, Ops was probably going to be my only project. Well,
I mean, that's what blows me away, that you're working on the Modern Magic thing and you have spaceships and shit in there. Like you're still doing all this stuff that you would want to do in a different game. You're just not limiting yourself. You're creating the expansions and the different, rules and integrating it into a system that
already exists. Yeah. To be fair though, Advanced Arms, which is the futuristic one, literally took an army of people arguing for me to write it. I did not want to speculate at all about that. So I finally gave up, stole a bunch of ideas and stuff from a bunch of other systems that are better than mine, and cobbled it together. Originally, like for example, the caseless firearms originally were based on the Halo guns, but because you can't say caseless without saying Colonial Marines, they got co-opted into that instead. So the pulse rifle and stuff like that, the M41A, all that stuff like that, they're pulse rifle. Plasma weapons are actually weapons that were co-opted Covenant in Halo. Electric rifles are because of Overwatch. You know, Winston Main, you know, can't shoot, can't aim, Winston Main.
Right.
And I figured, why not have an electric rifle? Plasarms. Okay, so here's something else I do want to talk about, and I'm not sure how much time we have.
We still had like half an hour. Okay,
cool. So psionics. I did psionics a little bit different. I'm going to say this out right now. They're basically Jedi, but not really. Psionics have the best and worst weapon in the game. It's called a Psyblade. It is a 1d3 damage sword that they use like a lightsaber. You press turn on, turn off, whatever. That has the best critical in the game. On its own, it's pretty garbage. It's probably the worst weapon you can pick up. If you take the feats for it and stuff like that, it is literally the best weapon in the game. Melee weapon. But you have to know how to use it because there's things you can't do while wielding it, like wear armor. Because you're fast. You have to be quick on your feet. Scions use that blade. They charge it by basically spending an hour and meditating it to charge the battery, the crystal battery inside. Cool. Yeah, I wanted to get it. I didn't like how the infinite, you know, power cell bullshit that Star Wars did. It's a hand wave. I didn't like that. But you can upgrade it with a better battery. You can upgrade it with, better battery. You can upgrade it with, you know, more damage, different crystals, such and such and such and such. Then there's the plasma blade, which is an actual lightsaber, so the way plasma guns work is they have emitters and they have basically stuff that goes off of the megawatts of the plasma gun. So, you know, phase plasma rifle in the 40-watt range is a thing in Option Tactics. Basically, the plasma blade is a sword version of a plasma gun. It uses coolant packs, so it will overheat if you just keep it on. Oh, yeah. But it does a shit ton of damage because you're basically just cutting people with pure plasma. I had to do that. I could not get away with doing that, like having the game system and not writing those in. They are my favorite weapons because both of them cannot, if you shoot at somebody who has all of the feats for it, they can basically knock bullets out of the air.
Oh, right.
Yeah, like Jedi. However, they can't knock shotgun shells and they can't knock grenades out of the air. Also like Jedi. So yeah. Where was I? 10. What was the last thing you said?
I don't know. Now I'm just thinking about whether you can cut through cover with a plasma sword.
Yes. Yes, you can. But here's the problem. You might get shot first. Because you can't, yeah. People using those kind of weapons are very susceptible to getting shot. For obvious reasons.
I know, I was also talking about, having it both ways, having the, needing anything new you want to add, you seem to just be adding into this instead of making a separate system for it.
Oh, God, yeah, no. I'm spoiled. I can't play. I've tried to play Pathfinder. I can't play Pathfinder. It's too slow. There's not enough things I can do. I can't play 5e because, again, it's too slow. There's not much I can do. When you look at the melee system of Ops and Tactics versus D&D, you will understand immediately why I say it's too slow and there's nothing I can do. One of the things that I have had, and this is 3 point, this is like D20 theory now. One of the things that people make a mistake with when they're writing a fantasy heartbreaker or stuff like that is they don't understand what feats are for. There's two ways you can do this. I did it the second way I'm about to mention. You can either lock everything under a feat, and that's where the feat tax shit comes from, or you can make your feats boring, and you can allow people to try anything, but feats make it better and or easier and or more possible to do things. I did number 2. So while, yes, you can take, let's say you don't have the personal firearm proficiency, right? You can pick up a handgun that's loaded already, and you can shoot it, but it's at a -4. You can't reload it, mind you. However, if somebody who does have that feat tutors you in how to reload it, it knocks the it reduces the penalty to shoot, and it allows you to reload guns. So you can tutor people in things, which is one thing we noticed that no other system really. You can't use the knowledge of other people in your party to benefit the lesser known people in your party.
You can, you're saying?
You can in Option Tactics, but I've never seen anybody else.
Right. Yeah, actually, that makes perfect sense. I mean, especially since you're going to be traveling and having each other's backs and stuff like that especially over a longer campaign, you'd think there'd be some overlap and some bleed from one into the other.
Or how do I shoot guns? Now, mind you, taking the feat's always a better option, but if you don't want to take the feat, or if you can't take the feat or whatever because you already wrote the character, that option is there.
Do you have rules for like vehicles and like driving?
Vehicles suck and are hard. Yes, I have rules for vehicles, but vehicles follow that rule of the farther you get away from the system, the easier it needs to be. Vehicles, by and large, are actually pretty narrative based. There are still rules for them on a combat like grid and such, but by and large, like actual moving vehicle and stuff, that's a lot of narrative because it's not a car game, and even though there are a bunch of fucking upgrades and stuff like that for cars, it's not a car game. It's not about racing. It's not about chasing down dudes and stuff like that. Cars are generally used as transportation vehicles and stuff like that. Maybe there might be a chase scene in which drive and you're shooting back at one another. Yeah, but that's not the crux of the game. So yes, there are vehicles.
I respect that so much, the attitude of what the game is about. And then, like, one of the, design philosophies I think that is worth keeping in mind for people who are listening to this is like having, you can think of it as a resolution, higher resolution for things that are important to the themes of the game and the core of the game. And
like making your own ammunition, extremely important to the game, which you can do, by the way. There are actually a lot of benefits to doing it too. Driving a car, not really big benefit. A matter of fact, there was one of my playtesters made a very good point about driving a car. It's like everybody should know how to drive a car. You shouldn't have to take 1 point in drive to be able to drive a car. That makes no sense. So I changed that. He's right. We don't care if you can drive or not. And that's one skill point that you had to use to be able to drive a car that you don't have to use you can use for something actually important about your character.
Yeah. See, now, that, just theoretically, if somebody was making a racing game and everything was about racing, and then there was also guns and you could kind of use guns, but, they weren't really important, it would be the opposite.
Yeah, you'd be like, oh, you got a handgun.
Everybody can use a gun. A gun is just a gun. They're all the same, They would say that, but that's because the focus of their game is completely different.
Horsepower would matter, the driver's various skills and various types of maneuvers would be more important.
The weight distribution on the axles,
Yeah, weight distribution on axles, gear, gear ratios, stuff like that be more important. Shit, I want to make that now.
You're going to have a whole
Somebody make that. If you make that, I'll help you. I promise you. I mean that. And I've kept that for I've helped people actually get their shit finished. I mean that 100%. If you make that, I'll help you. I'm not going to do it for you, but I'll definitely help you.
Somebody who's listened to this has to do that. I'm not a modern guy. I like my fantasy, so I'm not going to probably delve into that, but I don't have the engineering mind for that kind of shit. I like
fantasy with guns. Ooh, that's before I forget. Yeah, there are a lot of guns in this game, like matchlocks and flintlocks and shit. Like there are a lot of guns in this game. So, but melee is not slouching either. Melee is just super duper dangerous. I think the most dangerous weapon in the game is actually a knife. Because knives are dangerous in real life. They're small and fast and stabby.
So you're saying it's realistic, but also I imagine from a game balance perspective, you want to also incentivize people to do other things than just hide behind cover and shoot at each other. So you could have, somebody specialize in melee stuff or whatever. And
a sword.
Yeah, try to get that commando who sneaks up in the bushes and, gets his knife.
Well, that doesn't, there's also a healthy selection of melee weapons. And plenty of characters I've seen use them, like the guy who was a part of some criminal crew. He did not take a gun. He took a longsword, and he cut a Russian's hand clean off in the middle of. He rushed him and cut his hand off. Yeah. So melee is definitely a viable option, especially at close range. Their 21-foot rule exists in Option Tactics. If you're within 21 feet, and even if you don't get the initiative, even if you get shot once or twice, unless he kills you, you can stab him to death.
I was going to ask about that. I couldn't remember what the name of was it, but the 21-foot rule.
The 21-foot rule says that anybody with a knife in their hand can beat and kill, or at the very least put their blade in somebody within 21 feet. So before you can draw your gun and fire a shot, if I'm at 21 feet, I can stab you. And that's average person. That's like fat me, my big-ass fat self, running at you and then stabbing you because my knife's in my... Even if my knife is in my hand, it's fast for me to draw my knife until you draw your gun.
Yeah, so I'm wondering then, do you have any reason why people wouldn't always be, locked and loaded and ready with their gun in your system? Like, I'm trying to imagine, because I haven't actually read it, but...
Probably because if you're walking around with a handgun in your hand, you're getting weird looks. That's why.
Right, so you're not... Yeah, I guess, you still have to incorporate the logic of, armed people in whatever campaign you're doing. And
but I mean, like, if the GM wants to allow a character to literally walk around with a rifle pointed at everybody he walks around, fucking go for it. It's stupid as shit, but go for it. Yeah.
So you're still using common sense in the, campaign, but you probably don't care as the designer of the game, to make rules for, like, how intimidating it is, or what reactions you get from people and stuff like that. You're trying to simulate the... Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. If you are armed and somebody is not, you do get bonuses to intimidate. Like, if you point a handgun in somebody's face, you can get like a +10 to intimidate somebody. So having objects to intimidate people do help. But yeah, generally I don't care about that. I let the GM handle that. The GM shouldn't have to think about is this rule fair. The GM should have to think about where's my story going and why are they about to rob this bank. So, yeah, my goal, and here's why, because I don't trust GMs and I don't trust players. I don't. I really don't. I've seen, like, 3.5, not a terribly bad system, but gets a lot of flack because there are a lot of bad GMs out there, and it's more worse players than anything else. I don't trust, when I say I don't trust GMs, I mean I don't trust GMs to handle, I don't trust them to handle rules competently because that's not their job. It's not the job of a GM to, arbitrate rules. That's not what they're there for. They're there to break ties, be judges, and provide entertainment and combat.
That's so interesting. I've heard the opposite, argument that it's basically a discussion between everything is a discussion between the GM and the players, and there shouldn't be the rules.
That's a rules light system,
right?
For rules light systems, yeah, I agree with that. For rules heavy like D&D and Ops and GURPS, no, that is not. The rules say this: you got shot, deduct the points from your hit points.
And basically, that you'd have to know that as you're pitching the game to people, and be very upfront about it so you don't mislead people into thinking that. And that's also something I think is a mark of a bad game, is when you come in expecting it to have a rule for something or a certain level of rule fidelity, but it ends up being judgment calls all over the place.
Yeah. That was another reason why I wrote Option Tactics, because, like, most people don't know this, and I know this because people call people rules lawyers and such.
Yeah.
I have a goddamn law degree in D20 at this point. There are no called shot rules in 3.5. I didn't see any in 4. I haven't read 5 completely. I know there's not many in 2. I think there's like a feat, but it's call shot is weird in 2. But I know there's none in 3 or 3.5. I don't think there's any in 4. There's none in D20 Modern. There's none in Pathfinder. There's none in the Modern Path. There's no call shot rule. People have told me, oh yeah, the call shot rules in such and such in the core rulebook and the player's handbook. Yeah, no, they don't exist. There's technically no way of calling a shot especially in 3.5. As such,
just quickly, what do you mean by the called shot? Because
I want to target that man's head, not his chest. Because in Ops and Tactics, it assumed that you're targeting center mass. If you want to target anything else, you specify, I'm going to shoot his hand, his leg, whatever, and they have different effects. In most D20 games, mind you, and I want to say this because I've noticed whoever listening isn't listening anymore, but Ops and Tactics uses 3D6, not D20. It is a 3D6 system. But in most D20 games, there is no called shot rule. So the GM has to make them up. And I've heard 6 different kinds of called shot rules.
Huh. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any systems I've heard that do have it. I think GURPS definitely has it, right?
I know GURPS does. GURPS has some GURPS's are better than mine, actually. GURPS has it. Hero has it. Twilight has it. There's a lot. Shadowrun has it. There are a lot of games that do, but D20 Modern does not. D&D does not.
So at this point, with your, would you say you've had success with this? Is it a success in your mind? I know that you said you didn't make any money off of it, but
I'm not trying to make money. The reason I wrote this is because there was no system that I could find that had as many guns as I'd wanted, that had as many equipment and upgrade stuff as I wanted. GURPS is probably one that I would probably point to if you don't like Ops and Tactics, but I got more guns than GURPS, so fuck it.
They use 3D6 too, right?
Yeah, they use 3. Well, here's the thing. So Ops and Tactics uses 3D6 as a resolution. GURPS uses D6s for everything. I was unable to do that because I was not able to get the type of damage spreads I wanted. There's a website called AntiDice. Use it. It allows you to actually graph and see averages and stuff for dices and dice damages and things like that. I wasn't able to get all the damages I want. I wasn't able to make calibers matter and make damages matter using just D6, using just a single dice. So you got to use the whole gambit of dice, D2s, which are coins, D3s, which are D6s minus divided by 2 or whatever, or I have dedicated D3s. D4s, D6s, D8s, and D10s and D12s. You need all those play Ops and Tactics. Most people have all those because most people play D&D. You don't need a D20 though. I made sure that there's no D20 in the game.
You have something D20s like just
yes, D20. A D20 for resolution is the worst kind of resolution you can exist because it is random as fuck.
You're talking about using a single D20 to have...
A single D20 is random. You have a 5% chance of rolling the 1, you have a 5% chance of rolling the 20. There's no scaling. You have to basically build your character to the point to where you're going to auto hit because because the dice cannot be dependent.
I absolutely agree. I don't know how any system can just use one D20 as a resolution mechanic.
Heartbreak, because they're heartbreaks. Because a lot of systems that you'll see, and they'll be how Ops and Tactics started, like D&D but blank.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah.
Because the reason for that is because they didn't read enough stuff. They didn't go and look around and see how people did shit.
Well, I do want to ask too, though, not just on a bigger sort of the culture of tabletop gaming thing. Isn't there sort of a bizarre inverse effect where the stupidity of the D20 is what makes it appealing to a lot of people? Because it's basically like gambling. Every time you roll for something that you shouldn't get, you have a good chance of getting it. And every time,
and for some people, for people who play those kind of games, I'd agree it's perfectly fine for them. You couldn't do that with Ops and Tactics. Matter of fact, because for the longest time, 3D6 used to be a variant. I have a few variant rules in this thing that change up this motherfucker like you wouldn't believe. when I made it, I made it an original full rule because we were using 3D6 more than anything else as a variant rule. We were constantly using that, and I went, it's just better. I'm changing it. Fuck it. But for some games, yeah, especially for D&D, it's just easier. It's a little bit faster to roll a D20 as opposed to having to roll 3D6 and have to add up the numbers and go from there.
I just think, maybe I emphasize the stupidity of people too much, but it's like people just
it's not really stupidity though. It's just not being exposed and not understanding the underlying math and not caring.
Well, I guess I think that there is just a gambling impulse that people have that, if there's always a 1 in 20 chance that you crit, they just like to roll a dice and see
what they get. Yeah. That's probably why 2D6 systems do so well.
Yeah. I don't know. That kind of stuff is, I'm always thinking about stuff like that is like, there's a reason why bad systems are popular. And,
because there's a low cost of entry. What does it take look at me. I basically started this shit in the basement. What does it take what does it take these days to get out on the market? Not fucking much. If everybody had to register and pay a fucking fee to be an RPG writer, there'd be a whole lot less of them.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you count like D&D or whatever as being a bad system, it's hugely.
D&D is popular because it is a monolith. D&D has 30 years actually of marketing value. It is quite literally, when people think RPGs, they don't say RPG, they say like D&D. I've observed this in my everyday life. That is because it has such a market. What's the phrase? I can't make it. It is quite literally, the market share. It has the most market share of any system, like by wide margin.
Right. Even the designers themselves. I mean, they get millions of pieces of feedback every year or whatever, and you'd think, why aren't they going to a 3D6 system if that's a superior system? Why do they keep the system that we all know is not mathematically best? Is it because they actually have faith in D20 being the best, or is it because of some other psychological?
It's not even psychological. It's just you want to support. If they made a change like 3D6 to D&D, they would have to basically rewrite the entire system. Which is, I say that because that's what I had to do. I had to go rebalance every goddamn.
But isn't that
the other thing is
edition though is like.
No, it's not, because it's with something like D&D, it's got to be familiar enough so that when somebody jumps, it's not. That's why Pathfinder did so well, because Pathfinder made minor changes, but for the most part, somebody who already knew D&D could just be like, oh, I'll just play this now.
Yeah,
that's why there's a lot of uproar for the new Pathfinder, where they're like, well, it's not going to be compatible with the old one, and people are like, what the fuck are they changing that? Because Pathfinder is like 90% compatible with 3.5. Like, you can rip monsters out of 3.5 and put them in Pathfinder.
Yeah.
So what are they changing to make it not compatible? That's one of the things that. So they don't do that because they don't want to rock the boat. They want people who played the system 20 years ago, played second edition, to be able to jump back into it. Well, it's okay. Second edition might be a little bit of a stretch, but people who played third edition in high school once and like, well, my friends are playing D&D, so I remember the D20. I'm gonna roll like. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of an IBM problem. They've kind of worked themselves into a hole with backwards compatibility.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, for somebody like myself, I love the novelty of a new system, and I would gladly learn a new system instead of.
Most people aren't. Most people are very happy playing D&D.
Yeah. Well, I really want to check out yours now. You're saying you're not charging money for it, so I have no excuse at all to not check it.
Not what? Oh no, it's free. Go download it. My goal is to make this motherfucker popular. That's all I really give a shit. I might charge. Now the setting book might get a charge because, it's a setting. We got to make some money somewhere.
Well,
print out books.
You should be charging, but.
No, I ain't charging for shit. No, that's not. When I started this project, it wasn't about the money. It's not about the money. It's about sending a message. I love that quote. But yeah, it's never been about the money, dude. I don't write this shit for money. I write this shit because people like it, because I want a system that I like. That's the reason why I write this shit. So a lot of changes that people don't agree with, because I like that change. I like the way.
Well, then you just have to do the pay what you want so that somebody can give you.
When it's done, I'll put it on drive-through. But until then, no. And I've said it's kind of a meme between the offers where it's like, oh, it's done. I've said it's done like 6 times. At least 6 times. It's done. Oh, wait, shit, that's a game-breaking issue. I need to fix that. Oh, wait, it's done. That. I'm actually to a point where I don't need it. I'm going through the changelog right now, and most of the things that I'm changing is adding something, removing something, or like just giving more value to things that already exist. Like I changed, like I added more equipment to, for health and stuff like that. Added more. Most of the changes I've given are adding more value. So it's not so much, where it's just like, this is terribly broken.
It's not a revision of the system in any way. It's just,
here's more junk.
It's like content.
Yeah. Like I added a bunch of guns. I fixed a bunch of errors that was like shit that was literally missing. Stuff doesn't require this, stuff doesn't require that. You get this automatically instead of having to pay for it. There's more equipment, and I am an equipment junkie. I love the armament books in D&D. I love the gun books in Shadowrun. I love equipment because I love seeing new ways to fuck with the mechanics.
Yeah. This should probably go without saying, but it would be interesting to play your game for the sake of scavenging off of enemies and stuff you kill, and actually, if you're fighting somebody who has a weapon that you would like, you have that much more reason to kill them because you're actually
take it from them. That's happened a bunch actually. There was one guy actually. There's a game I played, and we were criminals, and I played a doctor. So there's one guy had a Glock. So I shot him with my Taurus, and I'm like, I'm taking this. And I'm like, all right. So, I had a Taurus PT-92 with Full Metal Jacket, and he had a Glock 19 with jacket hollow points, and I'm like, yeah, score, taking that shit. So yeah, it's. I warn you, there are a lot of guns, and I tried to represent them as best as I could. There's, you can make your own ammunition. Damage is done by caliber.
Like me, I'm going to need that storefront thing because I'm going to be, when I get that many choices, I stop, processing it. I just start randomly picking stuff.
Picking shit you want, yeah. Picking shit you know and you like. So yeah, and the things I'm most proud of is the magic system and the upgrade system in Ops. So the way you can upgrade your gun, the way you can change things around, the way you can, turn your standard 1911 into this race gun motherfucker. You can't rechamber stuff, unfortunately, but you can pretty much do everything else. And with enough guns, you shouldn't have to rechamber anything. Just buy the gun you want. Oh, and there's a very robust crafting, to the point where you can make your own firearms. And I mean that in the sense of, I pick the magazine, I pick the caliber, I pick the gun type, and I build a firearm. I think one of our favorite creations was a 10mm lever action carbine, the 50 BMG short barreled rifle. That one was interesting. Recoil out the bitch, and recoil is a part of the game, but the way it's handled, this is about design and stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we go, make sure that whatever you do, especially when it comes to guns, Dex is not the win-all stat. In Ops, it's not, especially with guns, because guns have recoil. You need to have strength to combat the recoil. If you don't have strength, you'll take negatives to your attack due to the recoil. Different attacks has more recoil, and every caliber has a recoil penalty. So 9mm may not, jump out your hand, but 50 BMG definitely will.
Yeah, I've seen the YouTube videos. That does happen.
Yeah. So recoil is a thing in Ops and Tactics. So if you want to be a good firearms gunner person, you have to have decent strength and good dexterity and good marksmanship dexterity. So
I mean, I think as a rule or a lesson you could learn, it's obviously best when you make something realistic or simulate it to the point where there is no one stat that's the dump stat that, is just best for everything, because in real life that's never how it works.
I mean, well, the dump stat in Ops and Tactics is probably charisma. You can probably get away with being a no talking killing motherfucker, but you're just going to be looked at as weird. When it comes to magic, wisdom is definitely not the dump stat. Probably strength or dexterity is probably the dump stats. Dexterity is important. Well, dexterity is important to actually aim your damn magic. Strength is probably the least important when it comes to magic. So there aren't really any dump stats. Wisdom is important because wisdom is actually the base thing for a lot of healing, a lot of like medical work and stuff. Charisma is obviously talking and such. Constitution is extremely important because your core hit points are based off your Constitution score. They do not go up. They only go up when your Constitution goes up.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, the average human character has 12, for reference. The average level 1 character has a con of 10, okay?
Yeah.
They'll have a core hit point score of 12, and they'll have an extended hit point score of 8, 10, right, maybe. For reference, an AK-47 or an AKM or an AKS, whatever, the 47 series, the AKM, fires a 7.62 by 39 round, right? That does 46 plus 2. If you're not wearing armor, a single round will pretty much wipe you clean.
Yeah.
Wear armor, use cover. It's important.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like you've got, I'm so jealous. It sounds like you've got so many people playing this. You've got feedback.
We have a few, but most of the feedback's been trolls from 4chan. Oh. I mean, I have a good, I can't judge how big this game is because nobody talks to me. My email is up. My email is opsandtactics@gmail.com. OPSANDTACTIS, like tactics.
Yeah.
@gmail.com. Email me if you want to complain, if you want help, if you want praise. I don't give a shit about, but if you don't like something, let me know.
Yeah.
Nobody talks to me, so I don't know how big this system has become. The only thing I know, the only way I'm able to gauge anything, and I try and comment on it when I see it, is I every once in a while will check the archives for the TG archives, the For Plebs, I think it's called, TG archive, yeah. And I'll just search Ops and Tactics and see if anybody's posted anything recently about Ops and Tactics. That's the only way for me to meter stuff.
What about like a Facebook page and that kind of shit,
Fuck a Facebook page. Fuck Zuckerberg, all right? I told you what I work in IT. Fuck Zuckerberg. I'm not putting up a damn Facebook page. I have a Discord. I had an IRC channel on SubTG. I still have it. We just don't use it much. We mostly use Discord. I have a blog. Everything is listed on the blog. I have a website. The website doesn't list the Discord because I can't actually change the website because I don't have access to it. It's a long story. It involves marshmallow fluff. Basically, the guy I paid to put the website up, I paid him marshmallow fluff. Then he got a real life with a wife and shit, and I haven't talked to him in almost 2 years. So I need to fix the website.
Oh.
But it's opsandtactics.com. You can download. I still can upload new books, which is good. But I don't have any way of gauging if people like this shit or not. I just know that, like, when you told me that people on the Game Design General channel are like, hey, you're famous. And I'm like, who the fuck thinks I'm famous?
Well, that's the impression I got, because I mentioned your name and like 3 people immediately said, oh, he's a great guy. We all like him. And I'm like, nobody said anybody in GDG history that everybody just likes somebody just from mentioning their name. So
I try not to be an asshole. I don't do well at it, but I try not to be one anyway. Yeah, it's probably because I've been around for so goddamn long. That's what. But no, I don't. If you like the system, fucking share it. That's the best thing you can do for me, because that tells me that you also agree that Wizards of the Coast can go fuck themselves. Because they have a ban. Oh, I know we got to go soon, but I got a quick story. So I tried to buy the D20 Modern license from Wizards of the Coast. So I called them.
Wow.
And they didn't know what it was.
They didn't know what their own license was?
No, yeah, they didn't know. I called the guy and he was like, what's that? I'm like, it's a system you guys wrote in 2001. He's like, let me check. And he put me on hold for like 10 minutes and he came back like, yeah, we don't make that.
Oh, geez.
And I went, huh? Like, yeah, sorry, dude. Bye. And he hung up. And I'm like, well, fuck. Wizards of the Coast has pretty much disowned D20 Modern. It's dead. It's a dead system, which is cool. That's fine. I want to take its spot.
Sounds like
to all my GURPS. To all my GURPS players out there, y'all keep doing y'all. I got no problem with GURPS. GURPS is fine. It's a system I definitely recommend to some people based on some specific stuff. Because GURPS, there's one thing GURPS does very well, and this is the reason. And I know we want to talk about things I like, systems I like and don't like.
Yeah. I
don't like GURPS because it's generic. I understand generic is in the name, but I don't like it because of that reason. I also don't like how they handle some firearms, because a 45 ACP handgun should not have 500 meter range. That don't make no sense. Shadowrun, another one. Great system, great people. Fucking play that shit till the cows come home. 5th edition, I've been told, isn't shit, so play that. Twilight 2013, also not a bad system. A little bit on the autistic side. You motherfuckers know what I'm talking about, but it's still a good system. There is a guy, and I know I'm just name calling this guy he's kind of on the, I don't want to comment on his mental state, but he has basically statted every firearm that has ever existed since 1930 something, 1920s, for Twilight 2000. So I think it's like PM Mulchi or whatever, but yeah, he statted way more guns than I have. But his website looks like it was made in the 90s, because it was. What else? What other game systems I actually like? I don't like Dungeon World, but that's because I'm not a rules light player. Big shout out to Made, because fucking funny to me that this game like that exists. If Viral hears this motherfucker, Engine Heart is I'm a big fan of that. I know the dude personally. He's a nice guy. Buy his Engine Heart.
Engine Heart, okay.
You never heard of Engine Heart?
No, I've never heard of it.
Okay, Engine Heart is a game about little robots after all the humans are gone. It's really cute. It's really kind of rules lighty, but it uses all D10s. Really fun game. Check it out. I think you can like buy it for like $5-6. It's a really good game either way. If you Google it, you'll definitely find it. Engine Heart, great game. Mr. Blue Sky from Mr. Blue Sky who helped write, and I think he wrote it actually himself, from Velocity. Also an excellent game. Go play that too. Who else? Trying to think. I can't think of any systems that, pop out.
Yeah. You've listed a lot already. I mean, I'm not an expert. I mean, I do this podcast, but I'm not an expert on all the different tabletop games out there by any stretch.
Those are just the ones that pop out to me because I either know the guys or I know they've been around pretty much as long as I have. Those are some systems I'd say I definitely like and I want to see more of. Did I say Shadowrun? Shadowrun's good too. Play that. You just stay the hell away from D20 Modern. It's a bad system. Anybody will tell you that it's a bad system.
Are there people who actually use it?
Yes, there are. There are definitely people who still use D20 Modern. If you mention D20 Modern on the 4chance TG, you will get somebody. I will bet you money somebody will mention opsandtactics. I can almost guarantee that, because for some reason people still think this motherfucker is D20. I understand why, but I don't like it.
Well,
it's not D20.
They'd mention it as something that's better, right? Like, you should do
that. Yes, they mention it as better. And then somebody will go, it's the same game because it's the same game with more guns, which means that's a motherfucker who didn't read. So yeah, that's.
It sounds
Yeah.
like.
Oh.
It sounds like people need to,
People need to read the book.
Yeah.
Read the book. That's all I
And
ask.
they
If
need
you
to
want
get in touch with you. So these people who are out there, they need to actually, complain.
Yes,
about the game. It sounds like you don't want any love for it, so you just go and complain to them about it, and they'll be happy.
Yeah. You might not like the answer you go, but you will definitely get an answer. I can guarantee that.
Well, I hope to see you around on GDG.
Yeah, but I'll probably be buzzing around. It's glad to be here. If you want to interview fuck. I did so well this entire interview. You want to interview me again, feel free. I'm not sure. I know there's more. We didn't actually touch on everything. I want to get into, like I said, honestly, I want to talk Magic System. Because that shit's fun to talk about.
Man, I absolutely want to have you back on and talk about Magic, because I was ready to have this whole conversation with guns and stuff like that, and then you threw in Magic at some point, and my mind was blown, and now I realize that you're actually much better at designing shit than just guns. So,
I didn't even get to talk on the race system in Option Tactics.
Yeah. I will definitely talk to you more about it. I can't.
Not race like black white. Race like elf orc. There's
Yeah.
There's a hybrid.
You got monsters. You got magic. You got spaceships. You got everything. Judging by the name Ops and Tactics, I would never have guessed any of that. And I think that's fascinating. I mean, your magic system already sounds more interesting than what I've seen in 95% of Heartbreakers and stuff out there, and you didn't start with that.
I mean, the reason is because most Heartbreakers are, how do I say this? They're trying to correct what they feel is wrong with D&D.
Yeah.
When you start with that mentality, you'll get a Heartbreaker. I say this from experience.
I was going to say, that sounds like you at first.
Ops and Tactics was a heartbreaker. It was a piece of shit. And I keep the original versions just so I don't forget how shitty it was.
Well, I try to tell people, go ahead and start your Heartbreaker. Just make sure it doesn't end as a Heartbreaker. Make sure you get a vision for what you really want to do, once you basically realize that.
Have a reason for existing. Yes.
Yeah. And you don't necessarily need to have like a market that you're trying to appeal to, or some sort of like subset of a different system you're going to aim it at or whatever. It can just basically be something that you are interested in. But I find it interesting. It's probably a common theme in indie RPG makers that, like you said, this was going to be a fuck you to D20 Modern. That's light. That sort of drive to prove something seems to be like the best motivation to actually see these things through to the end.
It is, but the difference. Okay, so the difference between my fuck you to D20 Modern and people trying to fuck you to D&D is that D&D is not a half bad system. D20 Modern was garbage, so it wasn't very hard for me to say fuck you to D20 Modern because D20 Modern was already trash.
I would probably say that. Well, first of all, I think D&D is horrible, but
it's not. It's not though. It's if I had to rate D&D from 1 to 10 on an RPG scale, I'd say it's a solid 5. It's a solid 5.5.
Yeah, okay. To me, I would say anything that's a 5 is pretty bad already. But
no. If you want to, we'll save that for another. We'll save that for another podcast because I got some bad systems for you.
Okay. I probably not familiar with how.
Oh, you gonna learn today. Trust me. I'm gonna hold off on that. We're gonna say that for another podcast because I'm definitely coming back. We're gonna talk about bad systems.
Okay.
Bad mechanics, bad settings, bad everything. We're gonna talk about these motherfuckers.
Well, that's great because you can learn a lot. Sometimes you can learn a lot more from reading bad systems than you can from.
Oh God, yes, yeah. But yeah, D&D isn't a half bad system. D20 Modern was trash. D20 Modern had mechanical issues with it. There was case in point, there was a way to basically make infinite money based on how the money system worked by buying and selling the same object.
Oh,
to the same person. In fact,
It was that. Bad.
yeah, it was bad. Armor didn't make any sense. Guns didn't make any sense. Feats didn't make any. It was bad. It was a bad system. So me saying "fuck you" D20 Modern was easy, but in the same time it limited me because I was aiming for D20 Modern but better. When I finally said, fuck D20 Modern, it's garbage, I'll make something better, was when I was able to start changing major rules like the combat system. Like, actually redoing feats that same name, different effect, or same name, better effect.
Right.
I was actually able to get and do that stuff. That when I no longer had to comply with D20 Modern, I could do more interesting things.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely want to have you back on to talk about bad systems, and also just, to all those guys out there that are starting something with no clue what they're really trying
Finish
to do.
it. That's the first thing. That's my number one piece of advice. Finish it. No matter how dog shit it is, finish it. Because the worst thing I've ever seen is people who, and this comes from 4chan. There was a dude who was basically saying that my system was shit and blah, blah, blah. And then when everybody was like, well, what the fuck you got? And he was like, well, I'm writing this. And we basically dogpiled on him because it was just like, so you motherfucker, you're talking shit, but you don't have anything you can actually present? Fuck off. You don't get to talk at the table. You don't get to downplay somebody's fucking game if you don't have some shit to show.
I love everybody criticizing, the big players and stuff of that, but if you're shitting on a different indie developer who's trying to do something and isn't like greedy and isn't doing something, yeah, you gotta have something else before you can do that.
I mean, I'm greedy, but I write this for myself primarily. I wrote Option Tactics because I wanted an RPG that I actually liked and agreed with and played and stuff like that. And that's my answer to a lot of people ask me why not just use GURPS or write for GURPS or whatever like that, because GURPS wasn't quite what I wanted. GURPS was about 50-ish% of what I wanted.
Man,
so
I can see from what you've actually ended up doing with it. I mean, probably you didn't have all of this in mind originally, but, obviously your vision is big enough that you shouldn't have done that, and you were right to reject that advice.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of people, there are some people, that's just another tidbit of advice. I know we're probably out of time, but you will, playtesters and homebrewers, you will get a particular type of asshole who will be proliferant in anything you write. It is the I did not ask for this guy. Okay? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I vaguely do. I've seen them talk on the GDG threads and stuff like that.
Okay. The I didn't ask for this guy is the guy who takes a look at your system, finds something that he doesn't like about it, and says, nobody asked for this. Fair. You know what? He's not wrong. Nobody did, but that doesn't mean that it's invalidated because nobody asked for this.
Oh, man. Getting into the community and trying to form an online community, the fact that, I also don't want to use Facebook. The options that you have and the places you can go to actually try to cultivate some sort of decent community is...
Discord and Roll20 are probably your best bets, bar none. Discord and Roll20.
But then all the different types of players and feedbacks and stuff, we're going to have to talk about that next time.
Yeah, that's fine. You're going to get... I have been trolled consistently for 8 years.
You've turned it into
at this point, I am untrollable. People don't try. When I post something, they don't try anymore because they know what's going to happen if they try and troll me. The one guy that did recently, like in the past year, I fixed his issue. His issue was valid. He was there's a quirk in D20 that if you drown somebody, because it sends them to a specific number of hit points, you can revive somebody by drowning.
Oh.
Yes. That got fixed.
Oh, man.
So yeah.
But yeah, so the haters, the trolls, everybody, what they got to do is actually just get your email you, And
yeah, feel free. Please, feel free. It is opsandtactics@gmail.com. That's OPSANDTACTIS.
yeah, and
gmail.com. Email me.
get onto the GDG Discord channel. I'm always telling people.
I am here. Send me messages. Send me ats. Feel free.
I think the other guys on GDG here are really going to appreciate you actually being around now that you're actually here, because you've got a lot of respect out there, even if it doesn't feel like it. It seems.
I don't know what the fuck I did to earn that shit, but all right. I'm just a dude who didn't know when to quit. That's all. Yeah.
All right. Well, it was really great talking to you. I'm definitely going to want to have you back, and I appreciate. I reached out to you, and it was like in no time you were willing to do this and actually talk. So.
Oh yeah, no problem.
All right, so I'll see you next time. I'll see you around on GDG.
Yeah, we need to schedule another one of these motherfuckers. Can we do another one tomorrow or some shit?
I would love to. I'll see if I can make it work.
Whenever. I'm here.
All right, see you.
I love these. And we're going to do bad systems next.